Okay. Perfect. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast. This afternoon, we have an incredible guest with us, one who's going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than Brother Deryl Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, sir. This means a lot to myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast. Now, Brother Deryl, for those who don't know, if you all, him and his wife came on and did a phenomenal job. I mean, a phenomenal job. So y'all can go back and watch their previous interview as a couple. They taught us a lot about love, postpartum, just depression, just overcoming so much. So I thank you and your wife for that. So that was great as well. Yes, sir. The first question we want to know for you, though, sir, is when did you first hear the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. I first heard, I would say it like this, in a more conscious state, was actually 1990. I just recently got kicked out of the military, out of the Marines, and a brother who also got kicked out, he had moved to Columbus, Georgia, and ended up joining the nation. And he called me one day and he was talking about the teachings and everything. You know, I'm in college at this time because I got kicked out August 20th and August 27th. I was on a college campus. And but he sent me those lectures. He sent me 5 lectures on Hon Min Farrakhan. Now, the first lecture I ever heard was Allah God the Killer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that was, I think I got those lectures like late October, early November. And I began to listen to that lecture. And I remember tears just started running down my face. And I was just crying. And my younger brother was there. You know, I was like, I've heard this before. You know, I heard this before. And that's why I said a more conscious state, because about 10 years ago, I was having a conversation with my mom, you know, when she rest in peace. She passed away last year. We were talking and she was just lamenting, okay, about how I was the son that left her, you know, when I went to Marines.
Yes,
you
sir,
know,
yes, sir.
Of all my children, I thought you would be the only one that wouldn't leave me. Okay. And she was beginning to tell me a story about how I was such a mama's baby, you know, just a mama's boy. She said, bro, I couldn't take you nowhere, you know. She said, I'd drop you off, you crying. When I come back to get you, you crying. and she was like, you know, but I found out I could leave you with your Uncle Jerry. And she said, you know, Jerry would sit you down and play that Malcolm X stuff on the console, you know. But, and they all clicked on me, you know, while she was talking, I'm thinking, okay, that's why the tears ran down. You know, like an old song you heard.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
But it was more of a comforting for me. And I never said anything to her. You know, on my way home, I thought about all that. I said, oh man, it wasn't Malcolm's voice I heard. It was Farrakhan's voice.
Yes, sir.
Because
yes, sir.
I had heard Malcolm's voice, you know. And when I started listening to the minister, because I heard Malcolm when I was in the Marines. And they didn't, you know. But when I heard the minister, I mean, I was just bawling, you know. And I'm like, So he, you know, to me is that comforter outside of my mother. He was that comforter for me. And so when I hear the minister, I really don't bear witness a lot. I sit there and listen, and I may have a tear or two. But all that from listening to my mom, she verified all that. I said, oh, okay, that's why I am the way I am. When I hear a minister. So that was 1990 when I first heard the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in a more conscious state, you know, because I was a little toddler back then. And that started my journey to the Nation of Islam. Well, that really didn't start it because you heard that episode, but in the Marines, you know, I had my episode in there too with, you know, Public Enemy and reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. You know, that sparked things in me as well. You know, so I had these different phases of leading me to the teachings. You know, I didn't read the whole Malcolm X book, be honest with you. Once he left the nation, man, it just got kind of, I'm like, I couldn't relate to all of that, you know.
Yes, sir.
All that stuff. I'm like, that militant Malcolm, I was down with that, you know, so I closed the book up. Yes, sir. But it was 1990. I mean, when I first awoke state and heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and I listened to those 5 lectures. I mean, I wore those tapes out.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And my sisters, both of my sisters, Miriam and Naima, send the greetings, family. My next question for you, sir, is when you were in the Marines, what was your experience like?
Well, initially, I mean, I started the process of going to the Marines at the age of 16. You know, when I was still in high school. And I, because I graduated early, I graduated at 17. And when I got there, so I went to boot camp July of 1987. I graduated June of 87. I was in boot camp the next month. And, you know, right off the bat, you know, that's a whole scary situation showing up for boot camp, you know, and whole new environment, folks yelling and screaming at you. You know, that was a whole different thing. And so some of the things that I really liked and some of the things I just couldn't take, you know, and it just, particularly listening to white folks and giving you instructions and telling you what to do. I mean, that wore thin on you, brother. I mean, I just couldn't deal with that, you know, and ultimately I'll tell you how, you know, what happened. But I went through boot camp, you know, did pretty good, got a physical fitness test, did 300 on that, you know.
Okay, yes, sir.
Which is a perfect score, you know. So got to my my unit, which was a stop. You get a stop, you leave boot camp, graduate, then they send you off to a stopping point, which was guard duty for me. So during the guard duty days, you know, they made me head of the shift and, you know, setting up the shift for different Marines to do their posts. So I was assigning posts to everybody. And, you know, white boys, you know, they tell you Marine Corps green, but that's a bunch of BS. You know, these white boys were highly upset that I was in charge of them. Okay. And I would assign them different posts that I wouldn't assign the 2 brothers that I was cool with. You know, they wanted to walk around posts, but I would always get that to the 2 brothers I knew.
Yes, sir.
Here's what happened. The white boys started to stay in the rack longer than they were supposed to, and they wouldn't listen to me anymore. So I wound up getting busted from that post. But that showed me something right there about how white people, you know, how white men are. And if they have to submit to Black authority, you know, that was one. And then, you know, I got into it with a white boy from Wyoming. Wind up, you know, pointing my AR 16 at him. You know, my A16, he was scared to death, you know, but, you know, coming from Dallas, Oak Cliff in particular, I didn't deal with white folks. You know, I only white person I would see was a teacher. Other than that, it was just all us, you know, so that was kind of hard to deal with. And after that, you know, I finally got to my unit. And then in the unit, you know, you dealing with white people that that you know, if you met them on the street, it would be, you know, it'll be on. And that's the thing about the military. You know, you get people in positions of authority that you know that if you met them in any other atmosphere, they'll be scared to death. You know, but they have that authority and they use their authority, you know, in sometimes wicked ways. But I got to my unit, you know, and to be honest with you, I mean, I enjoyed the training and you know, the physical training, the combat training, and all of that. And I just didn't enjoy white authority. So eventually, you know, the Black Power movement started coming in. You know, Brother Mikael talked about that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, he came to the base where I was. You know, I was getting processed out, but we had already lit a fire on that base, you know, with the Black Power movement. And I mean, we were black medallions, kufis, and, you know, we were public enemy to the max, blaring that, you know, Black Steel in Our Chaos, you know, that particular track. You know, yes, I got a letter from the government the other day. You know, we blasted that on base.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's making white boys nervous and everything, you know. And of course, we got the black medallions on, the African medallions, you know, and show you how what happened. They banned us from wearing the black medallions on base. They outlawed it. But they didn't outlaw the Confederate flags that were the white boys were wearing. You know, so, you know, all that Marine Corps green, we all one family, miss me with that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
my journey in the Marines, it was good and bad. You know, I can never, you know, even to this day, if someone sees me out in public, they'll ask me, oh, so you was in the service, you know, because that's still there, whether it's from the Marines and subsequently the FOI. Because, you know, I left one military, came into another one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So my journey, I finally got, you know, into some trouble, several troubles. But the final trouble that I got into, I wound up getting kicked out. All right. So I got kicked out of there. And the thing about it, it was 3 of us that got kicked out. They put us on trial. We actually went to trial and got kicked out. For the offense, you know, was a dirty UA, you know, urinalysis test. We just had a dirty one. Something that they really wouldn't put you out for. But because we were black, we had a pattern of wearing black medallions, and they made it, they actually targeted black Marines to put out of the Marine Corps. And we were the casualties of that, because what we got disciplined for and kicked out for, a white guy who had a dirty UA the same time we did, they didn't kick him out. They actually reassigned him to another unit and kept him in the Corps. Yes, sir. So that journey inside there was, like I said, good and bad. You know, so I wound up getting kicked out with what's called a OTH. That stands for other than honorable discharge. Okay. So that's funny, you know. I could tell you another story about that later on, but other than honorable, yes, that was my discharge. So
yes, sir. Okay. Now, and thank you. So many people in the comments are showing you love. Your daughter, Sister Nisa, Sister Malika J. Marshall says ASA beloved family, and she loves you all. Thank you all very much. And thank everybody who continues to like, share, subscribe to the People's Podcast. So when you were on trial, is it anything similar to A Few Good Men and these movies, maybe where they show what it's like to be on trial in the Marines? Is that accurate?
Yes. I mean, I just didn't have a jury. Okay, because my charge was not a a murder charge. So I didn't have to stand before a jury, but I did have to have a lawyer and a judge, the judge advocate sitting on there, just like you see in A Few Good Men, minus the jury.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
I was
yes,
in
sir.
the courtroom, and they had to remind me. Private Patterson was my slave name.
Yes,
Private
sir.
Patterson. I'm not going to warn you again to say yes, sir. Because I was just like, man, whatever. Y'all put me out, put me out.
Yes, sir.
I'm done. I had done everything I wanted to do anyway. I was in California. I was stationed in California having fun, and I went overseas and came back, and but yeah, the trial was just like that. The judge, my lawyer presented his case on my behalf. He had a troubled childhood, and that's why he was using the drugs, to cope with different things that happened in his life and everything. All of that didn't work, didn't amount to nothing. To me, they were practicing being lawyers. That's what it seemed like to me, and of course I got kicked out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now whatever happened to Uncle Jerry or Uncle Jimmy? Uncle Jerry.
My Uncle Jerry?
Yes, sir. Did he ever? Okay, go ahead.
He was actually a radio personality in Houston.
Okay.
Houston, Texas. He actually he passed away, but he was a radio personality. I can't think of he had changed his name to an African name. I can't remember it, but he was real close to the regional minister, student regional minister, Dr. Abdul Halim.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, they were good friends,
So you had a conversation with him about the nation and the correlation in the music and all. I mean, him playing that, introducing that to you.
No, because he was already passed before my mother actually told me that story. Yeah, he'd already passed, so I never got a chance to conversate with him about that. But he did contact me one time that he wanted to interview me on his radio show. But it never transpired. I had done something. I think I spoke at the school board meeting here in Fort Worth, and he called me. He wanted me to come on his show, but we couldn't get the thing worked out. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. Well, what was it like when you joined the nation? What was the climate like, and what was let us know. Walk us through, please.
Okay. So, like I said, I first, 1990, I got those lectures, and my brother, my younger brother, Brother Christopher, who also joined the nation, we found the information on where the mosque was in Dallas and the address. So we wrote them. I wrote a letter to the minister at the time was Brother Carl Muhammad. And he sent me back a book, Our Savior Has Arrived by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That was the first book I ever read.
Yes, sir.
By the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so that was 1990. And 91 is when we finally got a chance to go to our first study group in Dallas. So we finally got a chance to do that and went to study group, man. And wow, just sitting in that circle and listening. I was just listening because I was mesmerized because I wasn't a church going brother. Even though I was raised in a Christian environment, I was just not going to church, so when the teachings came to me, I was like an open vessel. I didn't have nothing to say, that ain't right. That ain't, y'all tripping, this, that, and the other. No, it was like hook, line, and sinker. And so we were on study guide 18.
Yes, sir.
At the time. And man, I got that study guide. I still have the same study guide. cherish it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All the right into the edge of it, all the highlights and everything, And so that was 1991. And we started, me and my brother, I say we because we were going out together. And eventually my wife and our sister Rosa, we started going out together in the study group. And so from 1990, I joined in 92. I finally got a chance to, be a part of the mosque because, I was in college. And I was going to college in East Texas State, which is now Texas A&M Commerce. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a way to get back and forth to Dallas to be that active, So it took me 2 years to finally get my ex, May 17, 1992. Still remember it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It was Mother's Day.
Praise be to Allah.
And so I joined the nation then. And, hit the ground running because at that time, the minister had been on Donahue and, Khaled was moving about doing his thing, and so the atmosphere of the nation was on the move. I mean, it was moving, man. And I mean, to the point where, we traveling, going different places, in 92, we went to Atlanta. That's when the World Series, when we were at the what Georgia, is it? Is it
Georgia?
Right. And we went in there. I mean, that was awesome. I mean, and it was so many black people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And think about it. And we had to secure that big old Georgia Dome. All right. And this is the instructions we got. So they put me on post. Say, brother, you don't have no relief. Okay? When the minister say assalamu alaikum, relieve yourself. I mean, but it was a beautiful thing, but I was used to standing post, because that's what I did in the Marines,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We in the Marines, you did what's called fire watch. You did 4-hour shifts. 4 on, 8 off, then 4 back on. Okay. So yes, standing a watch for 4 hours, that was okay. I got it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, but that was, I mean, it was hot. Then, Khaled did the King College speech.
Yes, sir.
In 93, man. And it was, white folks was upset, at the nation. And of course, the minister, they outright hate the minister. I mean, the Jews were still, that was 84, he was still on attack.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then we came out with the secret relationship between blacks and Jews, hit back. Hit them with an uppercut and a right cross.
Yes, sir.
And but in Dallas, the mosque was growing. So when I got in 92, we were meeting in a little office building. And, we were, I think Captain Allen, that was the first captain I had, but Captain Allen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And Brother Carl, the Minister Carl, he was, Dallas was a regional headquarters at the time, before the minister moved it to Houston. And, those things it was a pretty intense environment, but it was fun to me, because I enjoyed the military aspect of the nation as well, and still do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And but the thing about it, Dallas wasn't doing that. Dallas wasn't doing the fall in and the saluting and all of that stuff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's been that's well known that that wasn't a part of the Dallas Mosque. So I got in trouble with I think Savior's Day, because I didn't know that. Coming in Dallas, I didn't know about that military aspect of the nation. So I'm at Savior's Day, Josh, and I'm standing around, and here come the Assistant Supreme, Brother Mustafa, And he was walking by with his some more brothers, and I was just looking at him, and behind him was brother Captain Aziz, which was formerly Brother Anthony.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Man, he popped over there, popped in my face and everything. He said, brother, didn't you see the Assistant Supreme Captain? I'm like, yes, sir. You're supposed to come to attention and salute. I'm like, well, okay, I didn't know that. So I'm like, but to me, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm with that because that's what I did in the Marines, If it's a high-ranking officer, that's what you do, But he didn't do it in a way that was, antagonistic or anything. He did it, how.
Yes,
you know how the GM is, he's that's a loving brother,
Absolutely.
But that was early on in the nation. Those are my experiences early on, that. Yeah, I came into the nation and loved every minute of it and still do. Crazy. But that was some of the pre-95 Nation of Islam. Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, sir. And how did your family and friends feel about you accepting the teachings?
Well, I was on college campus now. So immediately, 1990, when I got those lectures, by 90, that was end of October, November. By January, I had stopped smoking cigarettes because I was Newport smoker. I had put cigarettes down. I stopped eating beef and pork. Okay, I stopped that in January. Just cut it cold turkey, and stopped drinking, beer and stuff like that. So what that did, the ones that knew me on campus or knew us, I have to say us because my younger brother as well, we stopped, having liquor and smoke and stuff like that at our apartment. So what that did was people stopped showing up. Because one, they couldn't come there and get a beer. They couldn't come smoke no weed. And if they couldn't do that, then they didn't stop by to get nothing to eat either. Because we always had food because we were taught how to cook. So our apartment, they always kind of showed up around dinner time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So they distanced themselves, the ones I knew on campus, they distanced themselves from me because it was something new and different. And actually, they feared some things about the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, And, my family, my father, he was kind of, now that I think about it, he was kind of hurt. And hurt in this sense that, he felt like he was losing a son, because I had stopped smoking and stopped drinking, we would do that together, he and his boys.
Yes, sir.
Because it's four boys, it's four of us. So we all sit down with dad, we smoking and drinking and talking and, doing the Negro thing.
Yes, sir.
But here it is, I stopped all that, and I remember one day he was kind of lit, and he was just going off, about himself, how, strong he is. And, I ain't no slave to nobody. And, then he made this statement. He said, why I can't be an example for you? So he was looking at the minister as being an example for me above him, which in a sense, that's true. But I just listened, I didn't say anything. I could have said, well, Dad, you standing here talking to me drunk. But so he finally came around though. I remember one time he was with his friends and, I came to see him and he was like, man, here he is right here. This nigga don't eat nothing but one meal a day. So he bragging,
yes, sir.
About it, So he came around, but Moms was like, you believe in God, don't you? I'm like, yeah. All right then. You ain't drinking, you ain't smoking no more, none of that. So mama was happy, that I wasn't doing any of those things anymore. So my other siblings, they was cool with it, My sister Kat actually stopped eating pork back then. So it had a little influence, but it was no real deep opposition. No, sir.
Okay, great. Yes, sir. And thank everybody who continues to show you all love on the comments. I can't wait to put this on YouTube. When did you go from seeing the most honorable minister was Farrakhan as someone who may be a political figure or a speaker to someone who was in fact divinely guided?
Woo. I mean, I was probably early on in my early, I would say it's 95, 96. When he came to Dallas and he was speaking at a church in Oak Cliff, on Ledbetter. And I was on post, okay? And here I am. I had already heard him talk about how, these, the UFOs, as they call them. We call them baby planes. Yes, follow him everywhere he goes. So I'm on post at the front door post. And it just got dark. And I'm looking at two objects approaching from different directions. First off, I'm like, okay, maybe it was helicopters or whatever, because minister in town and it's hot,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But as I'm watching them come towards each other, I'm like, no, those ain't helicopters. And it clicked in my mind. I said, oh, man, them the baby planes. And they came heading fast towards each other. And then all of a sudden, they both banked out and shot away at the same time, going the same direction. And I said, all praises due to Allah. So that's a confirmation for me. I'm like, oh man, this man is who he say he is.
Yes, sir. Okay, we're gonna stay right there. We're gonna stay right there, Bro Deryl. We're gonna stay right there.
Yes, sir.
So how did they look? Was there a color?
Well, it was the green, they was green lights strobing,
yes,
like it's back and forth, and the thing about it, like I said, they were headed towards each other, like they was getting ready to run into each other, but they didn't. They both came to a certain distance between them, and they just shot out in the same direction. Man, I was like, praise be to Allah, so that. And then he was in Texas again at the Anatole Hotel. They was having a laborers meeting. And a brother come running out of the hotel, one of the brothers on security, like, the baby plane's here, the baby plane's here. And he came out there and we were looking, and coming from around the hotel, around the top of it, this green light again, strolling, just moving. I was like, oh man, everywhere he go. But that's what the scripture says.
That's right.
Wherever the Son of Man went, this cloud went.
Yes, sir. Him. Yes, sir.
So that's the type of things that, cemented it in my mind that he's divinely guided, and the things that he has us to do. Like when I was on college campus, the Malcolm X movie came out, and I was in the nation at this time. We had a study group on campus. We were off that campus. Like about, I think maybe 10 or 11 of us actually joined the nation off that campus. And praise be to Allah. I mean, we had a lit campus down there. And the minister advised us to not say anything with respect to the Malcolm X movement. Shut our mouth. I mean, in the campus newspaper, the editor, she found me. She like, so can I get a comment or interview with you about the Malcolm X movie? I'm like, oh, no, not at all. And we understand that movie hit the theater, it went up and crashed. So his divine guidance, kept us safe. I mean, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him, brother, they laid many traps for you.
Yes, sir. That's what he said. But
you're going to spring all the traps.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So he's guiding this nation, from on high.
That's right.
They are backing him and they moving him in a way that keeps us from being, we are lost some brothers, lost some sisters, but by and large, we haven't suffered as much as the nosebleed. So that type of stuff helps me. And then a couple of one dream in particular is two. One dream I had about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, it verified something to me. He was on the rostrum teaching, but I was in the balcony. But I was in the balcony. It seemed like I was just huge, and he was small on the stage, And I was listening to him and looking at him, and he was making his points, and I was like, I'm gonna bend over because he was small to me. I'm gonna bend over and kiss him on his forehead, But as I did that, Brother Joshua, as I did it and came back out, I didn't see the minister. I saw the face of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I was like, so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is in Farrakhan. That's another one that just said, he is who he says he is.
Praise be to Allah.
And then I had another dream once where he was, the minister was in like a pond or something. He was in some water, and he had a white garment on, but it was just from the waist down. And he didn't have the garment covering his top portion of his body, but he was ripped to shreds, And it was a beast or like a tiger or something on the bank that was growling at him. And all of a sudden, it ran from the banks and jumped into the pond or the water where he was and took him under. And I'm in my dreams, right now, I'm like, he's going to drown, he's going to drown, he's going to drown.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
And I see the Honorable Elijah Muhammad dip both two hands in the water, pulled him out and the beast out at the same time. And I'm like, he's saved.
Yes, sir.
So again, I'm like, wow, he is who he says he is, So it's many of things that, that the minister has done to solidify his position with the God and the Christ. I mean, the Million Man March. I mean, that was a miracle in itself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As Jesus went to told Joseph, Lazarus, to come forth.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we came forth. Almost 2 million of us was on that mall. It was a beautiful day. Nothing, no violence, no nothing took place. I saw one brother try to light up a joint, and the old school brothers told him, no, we ain't here for that today. So he put the joint, he threw it to the ground and stepped over. I'm like, wow. But it was just that alone was a signal to the white man that, we missed the Messiah. We thought we got it.
Beautiful.
But the scripture said the Messiah was here.
Yes, sir.
So they thought that they had got the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but they didn't. But they never factored on Farrakhan. They never factored that. They thought they had destroyed the nation when they established, Wallace or Dean Muhammad onto the as the supreme minister and the new leader of the Nation of Islam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
then he did his work. Nation fell, and white folks washed their hands, wiped their hands like, ha ha, we did it. And here comes the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who was hid. He was like a pearl, just hid,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He said he said, I turned hypocrite against my teaching in the God. But as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had already prayed for him, just like the scripture said, Jesus said to Peter, I've already prayed for you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when you return to faith, go and strengthen your brothers. So the minister had, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had already prayed for him. When he did that speech, I think in Atlanta, he told him that, brother, for that one speech, if you ever turn hypocrite on me, I'll pray to Allah that he go get you and bring you back. Well, yes, that's right in the scripture. Because Peter denied Jesus, is what the scripture says.
That's right. That's right.
But he came back to faith, and look what he's doing now. He's strengthening his brothers. And he's doing what? He's producing other ministers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As Aaron in the Bible, Aaron was the head of the Levites, the priesthood.
Go on, teach then. Yes, sir.
So he's raising up teachers for us. So, we're going to be in good shape. When he goes back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and get what's promised to him, we're going to be all right. It's going to be rough, but we're going to make it through. Wow. Yes, sir.
Excellent teaching. Right on time, right there, right on time. Yes, sir. I have a quick 60-second commercial break, and then we're coming right back to our brother information as well as inspiration. Quick 60-second commercial break to all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast. Hold on 1 second. That's why I'm done. Okay, here we go. Boom. And I can't wait to put this on YouTube. If you would like to be a sponsor or donor, please cash app the People's Podcast. Thank you very much. My brother Rashad, Street Premier Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out if you need anything. My sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me, children's book and coloring book, both of which are available on Amazon. Please get both of these. My sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country and right here in the studio in Atlanta, Georgia. We love our tiny dancers. Sister Rashida Rafat, Rod Communication 5-year anniversary special promo. If you were working on a book and you need content development, media relations, anything working on writing a book, please reach out to Rod Communications, Sister Rashida Rafat. Student Minister Robert L. Muhammad of Austin, Texas, conflict mediation, squashing the beef throughout the Southwest region. Thank you very much. His wife, Sister Fudia Muhammad, Children of the Most High, giving birth to a God in the science of child rearing. Thank you very much, Sister Fudia. Brother Kenneth, he'll ship bow ties to you anywhere in the country. He's a bow tie maker extraordinaire. Thank you very much, Brother Kenneth. Sister Sherry Muhammad, Asiatic Minds Online, virtual school. If you want your children to go to school virtually, learn STEM, raising young kings and queens, AsiaticMinds.com. Very much. Dr. Henry M. Carter, King Henry's Turkey Legs, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Rashad Muhammad, COVID-19 Disinfecting Cleaning Service of Chicago. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ, and his new book, Down Is Not Out, both of which are available on AbdulSharif.com. And last but not least, my 2 books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Thank you all very much. Right back to our brother Daryl. Now, Brother Daryl, are you in the ministry?
At this time, I'm the student secretary here.
Okay, yes, sir.
However, I tell you this, I was in the ministry. I actually, when I moved to Fort Worth in 94, at the end of 94, I was the study group recorder. I had been made the study group recorder here in the city of Fort Worth. And by September 95, I was made the study group coordinator. Mm-hmm. So I was heading the study group here in Fort Worth. And so that was 95, September 95. And then by April 1997, April 24th to be exact, 1997, we were granted a mosque charter. So I was actually one of the few ministers throughout the nation that has taken the city to mosque status. You know, that's that's on my resume. Yes, sir. I was a minister, and then I came. Now I'm a student secretary. You know, in the same city that I was once a student minister. You know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And well, Brother Secretary and Brother Minister, what advice would you give to the believers all over the country who during the pandemic, the spirit may be down, a lot of people may be losing faith? What advice would you give to people to as far as being positive?
I would say let's start with prayer. And I'll tell you something that this student national secretary, brother Saad Muhammad, he has in the secretarial department, we have something we call P15. Mm-hmm. And that's get up in the morning, pray, and listen to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for at least 15 minutes or more. That's what we call the P15. Beautiful. And if we stay in prayer and we stay in study, because it's hard for you to lose faith or lose or be sad or be depressed. If you listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that's kind of hard to do. In fact, in order for you to do something wrong, you got to not listen to him. Because if you think about doing something wrong and you put on a lecture, you're not going to do what you think about doing. So that's a key point to understand, that how we get off course is because we stop listening. We stop studying. And that brings about, going to do things that we're not supposed to be doing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We find ourselves in the street, trying to sag or something. If you're a FOI, you got back and try to sag, or the sisters, you out there doing your thing, because we stop listening, is what I say. Stop listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and stop studying and stop praying. We stop doing the things that we're supposed to do. Prayer and charity, go hand in hand.
Yes, sir.
If you praying, then of course you must be charitable. Okay, you can't tell me that you praying and not charitable, because Quran it marries those together. So I would just say that. I would say, pray, listen to the minister, and study the teachings, and make that your focus. I know we may get off base a little bit with music and whatnot, because I listen to music, all kind of music. So
okay, and
some of it is not, I mean, I like gangster rap, or reality rap, as they like to call it. That's just me. Yes, I grew up on hip hop, so, but that doesn't mean I'm going out and doing what they're talking about.
Yes, sir.
In that. I got enough strength by the grace of Allah to not fall to that level, but do I listen to it? Yeah, I do,
Okay, well, Bro Deryl, what type of reality rap do you listen to? What type of reality?
I mean, you gotta, I'm 52.
Yes, sir.
So I grew up with Ice-T.
Okay.
Ice Cube, Cool G Rap.
Okay.
I mean, you can go way back to what's his name? Spoonie G. Who is really the original gangster rapper. Ice-T did his little song, 6 in the morning. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Police at My Door.
Right, but that's based off of a vibe from Spoonie G. And of course, Ice Cube, NWA. I mean, UGK.
UGK, yes, sir.
I mean, who is, Nas kind of has little gangster tracks every now and then, but Nas my favorite rapper though.
Okay.
So yes, sir. All that. I mean, Ghetto Boys.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
West Coast. I mean, the West Coast. You Snoop and Dog Pound and Dre and.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I remember way back with Joe Cooley and Rotten Dio. But that's before your time.
I'm about to say you lost me that one. Okay, Bro Deryl.
And Cam.
Cam, yes, sir. Shout out to Cam too. And everybody who's watching, please go back and look at the interview I did with Cam as well. But Brother Deryl, yes, I was going to ask you about fear. Being in Texas, coming from the Marines, coming from Dallas to now Fort Worth, has there ever been a time where you were faced with fear? And if so, how have you overcome that fear?
Well, I mean, little trivial things. I was scared when I broke this window in And the owner came running around the corner because we thought the house was vacant. Me and my cousin, that was fear. And I ran, and police got called, so we had to go deal with the police. That was younger fear. But I mean, in the Marines, yeah, when they was talking about going to war. Like, man, I didn't come in here to go to war now. That part wasn't even, that hadn't even crossed my mind. I was trying to get out of the situation I was in back in the world. I was trying to escape that environment, coming to the Marines and be away from that. But them boys talking about going to Desert Storm.
Yes, sir.
And fighting for real, And that was kind of a scare thing. But what happened, how I overcame that is they told me they was kicking me out. So, okay.
Yes,
because
sir.
that's a stressful time. I was watching Marines, they were talking crazy, about we going to kill some ragheads, and they were talking that way. But once they really got to the point where they was actually moving equipment onto the parade deck and getting ready to load up, all them same white boys turned to tears. And say, because we had got called to Panama and turned around. We had a couple of situations where we were going to deploy and we didn't. So they probably thought it was the same thing, whatever. But yeah, in the Marines, that getting kicked out and not going to Desert Storm, yeah, that saved me. Allah was with me on that. But nothing while I've been in the nation, I mean, I haven't been faced with anything fearful in the nation because, Allah removes fear from you.
Praise be to God.
So in the nation, no. I mean, I've been, it's just not there. Allah just takes that away from you, and I haven't been in any situations where no guns drawn on me or knives pulled out. You get some of that on the block. They rolling up on the block with they pistol in their lap. I'm like, nah, I don't want no final call.
Yes, sir.
But you see it, But then like I said, Allah got you. You just say, bro, come on now. This is final call newspaper, and then they forget they got the gun. And they wind up giving you $5, $20 or whatever.
Yes,
sir. Like, man, I'm just tripping, man. I'm just tripping.
Yes, sir.
So yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sister Kabira says, go ahead. In the comments, Kabira Muhammad says, go ahead.
That's my daughter.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah.
My next question for you is, well, speaking of having children, what advice would you give to future fathers?
Well, raise all your children in the teachers of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And hope for the best. I mean, because to be honest with you, the only thing you can do is to try to be an example for your children first and foremost.
Yes, sir.
And and try to deal with them wisely and justly and love them. And also with these teachings, try to raise them within the teaching of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And like I said, and pray that they stay on course, and not go off course and do things that that the world has for them out there. I mean, that world is nothing but sharks out there.
Yes, sir.
And, you just pray that they don't get caught up in that, because once they get out of your house or your care, once they're grown, then their decisions are on them. I mean, but while they're under your roof, try to, guide them the best as you can. To be honest, I didn't force the teachings on my children. I just tried to be an example for them. And what you find with that, I heard Ishmael talk about it once. You know, he said, you know, these are Allah's children.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, don't worry about it. Whatever they gonna go through, Allah got them. You know, they born in this and raised in this. Yeah, they may stray, but the teachers are there. You know, all you have to do is just listen to your children and listen to them talk about certain situations. All you hear the teachings coming out of, you know. So they may not be in the mosque, you know, active and everything like that. You may have, you know, 4 children, 2 in the mosque, 2 not, you know, whatever. But it's in there.
Praise be to Allah.
And the thing also that I found out, Josh, is they got a network too. These babies that was raised in the nation, they keep in touch with one another. You know, so they have a connection. They may not be in the mosque, but they still keeping in touch with one another. You know, so inshallah, they'll all come back home one day. You know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, my next question is for future husbands. What advice would you give?
Whew. Get yourself together.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, before you actually step into the arena of marriage, you know, in courtship. I mean, try to have yourself together. I mean, if you can, you know, an older brother here, Brother Manuel, he's probably 75. I mean, he said, man, you need at least have $10,000 in the bank before you even think about courting somebody. That's what he'll tell us, you know. But you gotta have, you know, yourself together and know and find out who you are as a man to the best of your ability, because you can only find out so much about your personal self as a man single. Okay. Because, you know, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that, you know, marriage is half your faith.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir.
You know, so that's when you start to get into the to knowing yourself. After you get married, you know, you start to find out different things about you, because the woman's gonna bring stuff out of you that you didn't know was there.
Yes, sir.
You know, because that's the nature of things, and vice versa. You're gonna bring things out of her that she didn't know was there, because that's the way Allah set it up. Okay, so as a future husband, you know, you gotta be mindful of the things that your wife likes and dislikes. You know, as they study us, you better study her too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, what does she like? You know, what's her favorite color? Do you know? You know, does she like foot rubs? Does she like this? You know, what's her favorite candy or whatever? And do those type of things. You know, I used to teach the brothers here in Fort Worth that I got from your father. Brother, you gone all day long, you know, with the Final Call newspaper, or you out late night from FOI class. He say, stop by the store and get her a flower or something.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And take it home to her. So, you know, I buy little things for my wife. It may not be much, but it's always something that's gonna put a smile on her face. So you keep your wife happy, you know, just by buying little things. It don't have to be much. If it's her favorite candy, she may be, you know, as they like to say, Aunt Flo is visiting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So you get her, you know, she may like Kit Kats. So you bring her home a Kit Kat because she grumpy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That time, you know, she grumpy or whatnot, you know. So as a husband, you got to know those little things, and to keep your household, you know, they say a happy wife, happy life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So those different things. Yeah.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my sister Naima says good advice, Brother Deryl. Yes, sir. And I want to thank you on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast for your sacrifice, Brother Deryl, and the sacrifice of your family. May Allah continue to bless you all. I have one more.
Yes, sir.
One more question for you. What would you like your legacy to be, sir?
Oh man, I don't know. Beyond, I mean, legacy is to me, it's still about family, and going on into the future. My legacy, would be my great grandchildren knowing who I am. That was my, he's the one, he was here when the devil was really on the planet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He had a part in fighting the devil, to remove him off our planet. That type of legacy to me would be awesome, to live on in the future and not just be some Negro lived, died, and don't nobody remember him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I want to, that's my legacy, that I wanted to be that, I was a Muslim.
Praise be to Allah.
I was a Muslim living the life of a Muslim life, and I lived and I died that way, a Muslim.
Yes,
that's
sir.
what man, because Islam to me, the nation is all I got, really, to be honest with you. Allah put me in a situation where I moved to a city where I didn't know nobody. My wife was, she moved to Fort Worth in the 8th grade, so she pretty much was raised here. So when I got to Fort Worth, I didn't know nobody. The only people I knew in Fort Worth were believers. So I was set into a situation that this is all I got. Like I said earlier, I didn't go to church, so none of that fazed me. So the nation is everything to me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is everything. So I can't see myself, leaving the nation, going to a church, or, going to be in a Kemetic community and, all about Egypt and things like that nature. Definitely ain't gonna be a Hebrew Israelite or none of that stuff. Nation is it for me.
Yes, sir.
And it's brought me great joy. I had a chance to have dinner with Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, twice in the same month.
How was that? How was that, sir? How was that?
That was stressful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had a laborers meeting, okay? 1996, July, around July 4th, we had a national laborers meeting. So at the end of it, the minister invites laborers to the palace to eat.
Yes, sir.
And I was one of them. I've been in the nation 4 years, mate, almost 4 years. And here I am being invited to eat with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I'm so young looking, because that's how they used to live, keep us young looking. I'm
Yes,
so
sir.
young looking. I get to the palace, brother Joshua. Guess who was at the door? Stopping me, brother Tadar.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He stopped me at the door, like, man, what you doing here?
Mm.
I'm like, I was invited, brother. He like, no, I don't know about all that, man. He got his hand on my chest, just holding me back, And Sister Claudette Marie Muhammad came over there. She was, she was a chief protocol.
Yes, sir.
Came over there like, but so he is on the list, So I get it. He said, all right, go on in there, but you still look too young to be here, though.
That sounds like brother time.
So we had dinner. That was a big dinner, but I didn't know why I was there. Traditional Muslim dinner. But at the end, as we're walking out, the minister greets everyone. So at the end of the dinner, I was with the Dr. Ali Muhammad and Brother Jeffrey, who was the minister in Dallas at the time. At the end, very end, we was last three. And the minister was like, oh, I was supposed to meet with you all. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. But what it was that a brother, his name Jeremiah Cummins, had set up a post in Dallas, and he was mimicking the nation. Mm. He loved the minister, and he was mimicking the nation, bow ties and everything like that, And people actually thought he was in the nation. And it was causing a rift in Dallas between the Mars 48 and him. Mm. And it got to the point where it flared up. And he had called the minister and said, well, can I just, move my congregation to Fort Worth and set up there and process to be, joined in the nation. He wanted to bring his whole congregation into the nation. Okay. So that was the reason for that dinner, me being invited. So that didn't happen. Okay. Mind you, I think it was a Saturday. That didn't happen. So I get a call Tuesday. Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan wanted us in Chicago at 6 p.m. Thursday for dinner. I'm like, we just left Chicago. So we back on a plane and we get to Chicago. Brother Emil picks us up at the airport and we get to the palace and have dinner that night. It was just 7 people at that dinner. That was an intimate dinner. It was just 7 of us. And the minister began to, ask questions, because he's getting first time sitting there with him. He's like, okay, what's my name? Where you from? You got an education? I was like, yes, I graduated, with a degree in print management. And he was like, he put his fork down, or his spoon, because being soup time. He put his spoon down. He said, and what? I said, print management. He said, PRINT. And I said, management. He was like, oh, because, printing press and all of that in the newspaper, So he was really intrigued by that, And so he was asking me how many children I got. I said, well, I got 2 children and 2 on the way, because my wife was pregnant with twins. He just said, well, Daryl's not sterile. He cracking jokes on me, And I told him I was in the Marine. I had got kicked out of the Marines. And he was like, I said, yeah, I got kicked out of Marines. OTH, And he's like, what's that mean? I said, other than honorable. And he just bust out laughing. That was the funniest thing to him. I mean, he was, just laughing. Yes, he said, well, I guess other than honorable to the devil is honorable to Allah, So that's, those were the 2 times I had dinner with him. And that, like I said, the second time was more intimate. And he talked to us a lot that night. One thing I do remember, he talked about the followers of War-Theme Muhammad. And he said, the problem with them are they still stuck in the 4 Gospels. And we have moved out of the 4 Gospels and we're into the Acts of the Apostles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's something to meditate on. But we worked out Jeremiah Cummins. He was going by Farad Muhammad at the time, and that was causing controversy too. Now, he called himself Farad, and the minister told him, you can keep the name, brother. And so he moved to Fort Worth, and the minister told us, well, this is what you do. One of y'all be on one side of town and the other one on the other side of town. So I'm like, okay, we're on the south side. And he could be, I said, the other side is what's called Stop 6. So that was the compromise that we had, that the minister struck between the two of us. And he said, well, you all apply for your charter. And he said that the one that gets the letter in would be Mos, A, and the next other one would be Mos B. So we were late. So we chartered as Mos 52B, and he was 52A. But he was part of Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. I don't know if you ever heard of that group.
Of course, Teddy.
Yeah, P. Jeremiah Cummins. He was part of that group.
Okay,
with, Teddy Pendergrass back in the day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But like I said, he loved the minister, and he brought his whole congregation in. But they set up the street from us. So he didn't follow instructions. Okay. And he wound up ordering papers on our account. Because, we was already established study group on our way to Mars status. And that brother ordered papers on our account. We like, where did this extra 500 papers come from? You know, but eventually he wound up going back to the Christianity. You know, it was just too much heat on him. But yeah, but that dinner, man, I mean, that was a beautiful dinner that I had with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In fact, he did something that the regional minister told us that he had never done. Was one, he took a phone call. He said the minister asked me, he had a phone call that he had been waiting on, so he excused himself from the table and went and took that phone call. He said, you know, I've never seen a minister do that. And he said, you know, that tells me that he was relaxed around us. And then he took a brother off post. There was a brother on post out. We over there eating dinner, you know, he on post.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the minister was like, brother, have you ate today? He's like, oh, no, sir, brother minister. You know, he rigid on post. He's like, brother, come on over here and get you something. Ain't nobody gonna bother me. Come over here and get you something to eat. So he came over there and sat down at the dinner table as well. And I can't remember who that brother was, but he got to sit down and have dinner with Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan too. Yes, sir.
Beautiful. Yes, sir. Well, thank everybody who continues to watch. Can't wait to put this on YouTube. And thank you again, Brother Deryl, for these amazing stories. And inshallah, I look forward to having a conversation with you in person and learning more about you, sir.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. I mean, I enjoy your podcast. I mean, I think they shadow banning you on YouTube because sometimes, you know, I don't get the notifications, even though I hit the notification bell and I know I'm supposed to get them, you know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
but
sir.
I do watch the, you know, I do get a chance to watch. As you know, I watch your podcast. So
thank you for that, sir.
I mean, yes, I learned so much from different believers, you know, and their story and their journey to Islam, you know, and the different things that they experience. So I appreciate your podcast, you know, and I appreciate you for having me on here, you know,
yes,
again.
Yes, sir. The honor is mine, and please give the greetings to your family as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank everybody who's watching. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam.